Overlapping action and follow through are two basic principles of animation. These principles add more dynamic motion in our animations. If we are animating an object that has multi parts connected to each other, and if one part is leading and others are following that part, so things won't move at the same time. All the parts of that object won't move at the same time, or similarly they won't stop at the same time. They need some delay offset. So that thing is called overlapping action. If we take a look at the Richard Williams book, The Animator's Survival Kit, the Richard Williams says overlapping action is where things move in parts, where everything does not happen at the same time. And if you take a close look at your own body parts, and if you just swing your arm around, you can see the shoulder joint is the lead joint, and the elbow and the wrist joint are following the motion of the shoulder joint. And first the shoulder joint would start to move, and as it moves few frames, it would drag the elbow joint, and when the elbow joint starts moving after few frames, the elbow joint would drag the wrist joint. And the same, when shoulder joint would stop, the elbow or the wrist joint won't stop at the same time, and as a reaction, meaning as a follow through, the elbow joint would go more further in the direction it was moving in. The wrist would also keep moving in the same direction. First the elbow would stop, and after that the wrist joint has to stop. So not all of three joints would stop at the same time, or even they won't start animating at the same time. So this difference, this offsetting between the motion, is called overlapping action. And when one thing starts moving and the other connecting things are being dragged, and if the first leading joint stops, nothing would stop at the same time, but they would also follow through. So overlapping action and follow through both are connected to each other. In this demo we are going to take a look at a very basic example of follow through and overlapping action. And for this I have the pendulum example here. If you press the 6 from keyboard, you can see the textures. So here is a pendulum. If we come to the side view and press the 6 from keyboard, we have it here. So in this example we can see this main joint of the main joint of the pendulum is this one, and we can see a chain is down here. So these joints are connected to this main joint and also to each other. So first of all, if we start moving this pendulum around, let's suppose if we take it here to this position, or maybe here, and now we want this to move from this point to that point. So first of all, you always have to be taking a look at your settings. It should be 12 frames per second, and now I have the default in tangents set to be as auto, and the default out tangent set to be as auto as well. And also take a look at the time slider, and there should be real time 24 frame as a playback speed. Save everything here, and now we have to start animating the main joint first. Whenever you're animating a character that where the multi joints are connecting to each other, you have to animate the main joint that is leading all other joints, and then you have to think of other joints. So this exercise is a very important, and it will give you more knowledge about how to animate different joints together, how to animate an object where different things are connected to each other. And you will learn also many new things in this demo. So you have to pay attention at whatever I'm animating here and the way I'm following. So first of all, I'm going to key this main joint here. So press the S from keyboard to assign a keyframe, and I have also the auto key turned on. So now let's take this object to the other location. At 24 frame, I'm bringing this back to here and setting it a key. Press the S from keyboard once again. So now this object is moving, and we know, as we have set our tangents to be auto tangent, and if we take a look at the graph editor here, we can see that the translate Z is already, it's slowing out from this keyframe and slowing into this keyframe. So we have also smooth animation here, but we have to look for the timing. Take a play blast. First of all, adjust the setting and take a play blast, and this will give us an idea whether the motion and movement of this pendulum is right or not. If we take a look, it's a little bit fast. We have to add some more time, and to do so we have to open the DOP sheet and open it up. We have this last keyframe here, and if you select the last keyframe and press the W from keyboard or R, just choose the move tool, and we are going to add more time. Before we add more time, I'm going to add some more frames down on the timeline here. So now if we move, let's suppose we just bring it to 30, frame number 30 here, and take another play blast to see if the timing does work. And if we take a look at this, now timing looks a little better. It's better than before. Okay, we can add more slow in and slow out by doing one thing here. If we select the translate Z, this is the main control, and select both of these keyframes or even this curve, and then go to curves, and here is the option weighted tangents. Once you have applied the weighted tangents, we can free their weight by just selecting this control. This will free their weight. Free means we can now move them around. And if we select, take a zoom in, if we select this control, first of all select both of them, press the shift key from keyboard, select this side and select the same side on this keyframe, and press the W key from the keyboard, holding down the shift, move to either left or right, and this way we can increase the curve. That means we are increasing, we are adding a more slow in or slow out. You can see we are adding actually more ease in or ease out here by just moving them around. So I'm going to add more ease in and ease out, and if we take a look at this again, this pendulum again, and now we can see it slows, it starts with the slow out, and there's a more slow out and more slow in, and in between these two keyframes we have a fast motion. So if we are happy with the timing and the movement of the pendulum, we have to add, now we have to work on these frames. So if we take a look at this in the perspective view as well, so if you play, you can feel the movement, and if we come to this point here and turn the X-ray off, I have it on, that's why it feels a little dim, turn it off. So now we have to add the motion, the movement to these joints, and what formula we do have to follow to add the overlapping action, or even this joint is leading, and now how would they follow this main leading joint? So what is the formula? If you just take a look at the motion of the first joint, I have some problem with my mouse. If you drag, and as it starts dragging, the main thing is this joint has to influence the first joint first of all, and this joint, when it would start moving, it will influence this down, and the same thing would happen to the last joint. So how can we bring this influence? Here we have to think of drag. When one leading object is moving, it would drag the connected joint that is more near to it. It would first influence that joint, and if we think it starts moving almost here at frame 6, or even if we go to frame 10 and we start at 6, because it starts moving here at frame 5 or 6, even I'm going to 6, select this joint, and as a reaction, because this leading joint is moving to this direction, and as a reaction this is to move to the other direction like that. And if we first of all just undo this, we did not assign a key at the first frame, press S to assign a key, and then at frame 6 we have to move it back slightly because the motion is not that quick, and the first of all we should have to be taking care of that it should not start moving on these frames. So maybe till frame 3 we have to copy the first frame, because we don't want this to start moving at the very beginning. And this is why we don't want this, because the leading joint has to take some momentum to influence the other joints. So to take some momentum it needs some frames, maybe frame 3. If we just copy this, and on frame 3 we have to paste this, select this one, copy animation, and then we have to paste the same key here. So if you see from here, this object would start influencing the first joint, and as it is speeding up, now the influence has to raise up. Maybe on frame 15 I have to take him more back like that, because now the pendulum is speeding up, so this thing should be more influenced. From here it's a small influence, but as it speeds up this has to go more back. So we have to follow these things. We have to take a close look at whenever we are animating and we are adding drag to our forces. And as it stops, it's going to be slow down here from this key, and if, as we know, the last keyframe on this leading joint is on the frame 30, but it starts slowing in almost from this keyframe. If we see when the curve is just, it's going to be a curved straight line, meaning the fast motion, and when it starts getting into a curve, that means it's now starting to slow into that position, almost from this position, frame 25, because the main motion of this main joint is slowing into that pose. But this joint was being dragged, so as a reaction now it won't stay held on this direction, but also it will just come forward as a follow through. So on the frame 25, let's bring him a little forward to show that now when this leading joint is losing the momentum, this has to start following through now. So from this keyframe it would start following, and after 10 frame, maybe on frame 40, this has to follow through. Now the leading joint has stopped, but this joint has to follow through, meaning this would go to this direction as a result, almost here. So if we take a look, we have a follow through here. Take a play blast. It doesn't look believable. We have to take a look at the graph editor, and we have to adjust the curve for sure. We have problems here, and if now we take this keyframe off, or maybe just straight it, just paying attention to this joint, select this joint and maybe smooth in like that, and the same way we have to adjust the flow onto this joint like this, because now it's maybe bring it more down to give a flow. And if you always pay attention to the flow of your curves, this way you are smoothing your animation. Now take a look, and now we have a better movement here, and this movement has to we are not focusing on the timing of the animation yet onto this giant, but we are just focusing on the flow. We may have to reduce some time here, but this we will add at the end when we are done posing all the motion. So as it goes to this direction, and now this leading giant has stopped, it would come to this point and it has to get back again. So I'm just working on 10 frame. Let's add more frames here, and on frame 50 I'm just adding 10 frames for each pose. It has to be coming back here, maybe here, and same on frame 60. Now if before it was on 40, because at that stage the momentum was higher and the force was higher, but at every swing now this giant has to lose energy. If it was at frame 40, it was that much extended here, now it has to reduce the distance on frame 60. So at frame 60 I will not push it much forward, rather I'll just decrease the distance. Before it was almost 3 grid points here, and at frame 60 it's a little back, and the same theory would be applied on the way back, meaning I'll do before it was here and now it's here. So it will start reducing the distance, and this way it's losing the energy. So at point here and 90 maybe, every time it's reducing, and we may have to add more frames here. 130 maybe, on 100 it's losing more, maybe here at 110, maybe here, and at 120 maybe here a little less, and at frame 130 maybe exactly coming to stop, meaning just bring it to the 0, it would stop. And if now we take a play blocks and see, and we can see it's gradually losing the energy and coming to a stop. We have to take a look at the graph editor, and definitely we may have to adjust the curves here. Select all of them and apply the auto tangent. It would help you adjust them, and if it doesn't, we manually have to. If I delete this key and maybe I adjust this one more for a flow. So the main thing is now we have to focus on the timing, because timing may not be perfect. If you take a look at in the play blocks, the first frame when it goes, it follows through, at that stage its timing is slow, and rest it does seem perfect, but at this stage the timing is a little slow. So I have to adjust the timing at frame almost here. If you can see we have quite a time here, so we have to adjust maybe at frame 35. It should come here. We have to reduce this timing, so zoom in, select all of the keyframe till the last frame, bring them here, and holding down press the W key from keyboard and move it back to frame 35. This is just a guesstimation. If we have to take a play blocks, this would tell us whether we have done the proper thing or we need more. We need to adjust the timing more. The timing does look perfect here. One thing that I'm noticing here needs adjustment is the flow. If you take a look at the pendulum movement from the first keyframe to the other and look at the reaction of the first giant, it's still not up to that point. Maybe we have to add more. What I'm talking about is when it starts moving, and at frame 50 when it starts speeding up, the impact should be a little sudden onto this joint. Whether it's more smooth, I want more impact here. I want it to be a little back here, more, bring it here, so that there should be an impact that it's pulling. Now you can see it's pulling, and take a play blast. And still we have to adjust as it slows down, and it slows down from here, almost here. I think we should bring this keyframe back, and to do so we have to go to again to the DOP sheet, bring it back to frame 23. You can follow the same frames, you may alter as if you think there needs to be improvement, there needs the animation to be improved. You can just alter your timing or even the motion. And now if you take another play blast, now it does look perfect, because the main impact that I needed, it happens here. Now it starts, it pulls it lets go, and now you can see it comes to a stop. So animation is very smooth, and we have to take care of when it's decreasing it's losing the energy. This follow through has to start. We are not talking about the overlapping yet, because overlapping has to happen amongst these three giants. We are just talking about the follow through. When the motion of this leading giant is slowing into this pose, this thing has to start following through. See, this joint has to start coming forward right when it's slowing into this pose. So this is adding a momentum, a flow, a believability. So we have to think of this, because the physics rules just tell when things are pushed with force, they should react quicker, they should react quickly, and we can see this quick reaction here. But when they start losing energy, definitely the follow through has to come into an action, and that action we can see here. Take another play blast and take a close look, and we can see that the first giant's motion and even timing does look a little perfect here. And now we have to add the animation to the rest of the giants first, and then the step of overlapping has to come. And how we will overlap, this is a fun job, and you will learn new things in the graph editor. So we have to copy the same motion onto these two joints. How can we copy all keyframes together? The one thing is that just hold on the shift and press the middlemost button and drag to the right on all the timeline, and this way you can select all of your keyframes. When they are red, that means they are selected, and we can copy all the keyframes, come back to the first frame. This is a must to be at the first frame when you want this joint also to start animating from the first frame. And now select this frame, right click and paste. All the animation will be pasted. Now these two frames are moving the same way. If we come here and we see, now these two frames are moving. If we take play blast, now we can see we have applied the animation to both of the giants. And this was the first way that we can copy all of animation by selecting all of the keyframe. And the other way is, if we now have to copy the animation from this point, go to the graph editor and select all of the keyframes by multi-selecting them, go to edit and copy, and now select this joint. You must be on the first frame and go to edit and paste. This way you have the same motion on the last joint. And now if we take a play blast, we can see that 3 joints are moving. And how easy is that? We don't have to animate every single joint. Rather, we can copy if they have to move in the same pattern, they have to follow the same momentum. We can just copy and paste. We have to animate the first joint and we can copy paste the animation to the rest of the joints. And this way we can speed up our flow. But if you take a look here, you may think that this is a good animation, but what we are lacking here is that there is no overlapping action. Every joint is moving at the same time and every joint is stopping at the same time. There is no offset between each joint, meaning every joint is starting from the first frame and ending at the last frame. If you select all 3 joints together by holding down shift, we can see the same keyframes or the same frames, so there is no overlap. How do we overlap? How do we offset our keys to give it an overlap, the feel of overlap? Why do we add the overlap? First, just take a look at the animation. When this leading joint has to start moving, it will influence the first joint. But now we can see when we start moving, the 3 joints move with the same momentum. That means this is equally influencing the 3 joints. This is not right in the reality. So to give it a little offset, meaning we want it should influence this first, and after a few frames it should influence this one, and after a few frames this should start influencing this one. So to do this, we have to offset the keys, meaning the keys on this first joint are perfect from the first frame, but this joint has to start moving not from the first frame, or maybe after 2 frame or 3 frame, and this also has to move not at the 3 frame, same at the 3 frame, because this is moving at the frame number 3 maybe. So this has to also be starting from maybe 5 or 6, and this way we can add the overlap. And how can we do this? It's very simple. Select these 3 joints by holding down shift, go to the top sheet, and now we know this is the first joint, this is the second joint, and this is the third joint. We don't have to change any timing at the first joint because we want it to start from the first frame, but we do want to change the animation on the second joint and the third joint. So we have to select both the second and third joint keyframes, and we are delaying, and select the move tool. We are delaying the animation, we are offsetting the animation by 3 frames, 1, 2 and 3. Now if we select this joint, it's starting from the first frame, but if we select this joint, now it's starting from the third frame. All the keyframes are offset. They have now the different timing, different keyframe. The same way, select this one, hold down this one, hold down shift and select all of them, and now we have to offset this last keyframe from the second one, and we are going to add more flow here. Maybe get zoom. I'm just zooming in, and select the move tool, offset it 1, 2 or maybe 3 frames. Each joint has 3 frames of offset. This is starting from the first frame, this one is starting from the third frame, and this is starting from the frame number 6. So this way we have the offset, and now we have to increase the time here because we have offset, so keys might be more forward. Select this one, or maybe here. So if now you take a play blast, and now we can see much better view, because now we have the overlapping action applied, and you can see this joint starts moving first, then this one, then this one. In the same way, this stops first, then this stops, and then this stops. So this way they are not stopping or moving at the same time, and this is adding a dynamic flow into animation. So this thing is called the overlapping. Follow through is when things stop, but the connected joint won't stop, they would keep moving in the same direction. So that is a follow through, meaning when it's the tail of the pendulum is moving this way and this way, that way. So this is the follow through, but the delay between these three joints is the overlapping action. So this applies to your whole character, meaning if you are animating a full body character, the overlap has to happen on the arms, meaning shoulder, elbow and wrist joint. It has to happen on the spine joints, all the spine joints, maybe chest, maybe belly, and maybe hip joint. It has to happen on the legs, on the main hip joint, the knee joint, and your ankle joint, and even on your fingers, the first joint, the second joint, and the third joint. Things don't move at the same times, and things don't stop at the same time. We have to add an overlap to give them believability and more readability. And to do this, we have to offset the keys. This is the first method. We have to learn more ways, and sometimes we add the overlapping action at the point of breakdown keyframes, and now you can see the flow. It influences the first joint first, then the second, and then it influences the third joint, and this way we have a more believable momentum, and you can see things are not stopping at the same. Every joint is going to stop after the first stops. Here you can see the first joint is going to stop. It stops now, it stops, the second is still moving, and now the second stops, but the third one is still, you can see the third one is still moving and coming to a stop. So this is overlapping action and follow through. And get more near, take another play blast. I recommend you read the Richard Williams book from first to the end page, or by the chapter wise, as if we are discussing the follow through and overlapping action here, you must read this chapter into the book, and it would give you more knowledge about what we are talking here. So the pendulum animation is great exercise. You may add this, you can alter the animation, you can bring more acting stuff into that, or you can change this. So I'm going to save this one as the pendulum, and maybe I'm going to add new version like 3, and I show you what I'm talking about. You can alter your exercise by doing more stuff onto pendulum. Here I have another animation, and this way the ball is on top of this pendulum, and when the pendulum starts moving, as a reaction the ball goes to this way, and it cannot keep him on top of the pendulum, and it gets down to the ground and starts bouncing like that. And if you take a play blast of this animation, it's not perfect, it needs adjustment, but this is an idea that you can work on something like this, because the ball is not rolling, there is no squash and stretch, things have to be applied onto the ball, but it's an idea. You can add something like that. You can start animating and adding more things on top of each other, because now you can animate a bouncing ball. You have learned how to animate a pendulum by adding the motion and overlapping action, and now you can bring them both into one scene, both rigs into one scene, and start playing with both of them. You can start bring some acting stuff here as you want. Everything has to be you need to experiment everything, and if you experiment more things, definitely you're going to learn more things. So always keep thinking that how can you bring and how can you alter your animation. Hope you have learned um, more things in the graph editor, and that was how to copying and pasting animation and how to add follow through and overlap to our objects.